Sarah walked quietly into the forest. The morning air felt cool against her skin. She carried a small backpack filled with snacks, water, and a blanket for her young son. Life had not been easy for her, but she had learned to find comfort in simple things. The woods, with their calm silence, gave her that comfort. Her son Daniel was at school, and she used this time to clear her thoughts. Bills were piling up. Rent was due in a week. She worked late nights at a diner, and her body often ached from standing too long. Yet she kept moving because Daniel needed her. She had promised herself that her son would never feel the loneliness she had carried since her own childhood. As Sarah walked deeper, she noticed the way the light flickered between the trees. Birds sang gently above her. It should have been an ordinary morning, but something made her pause. A sound. It was faint, almost lost in the wind. At first, she thought it was her imagination. Then she heard it again, a muffled voice, a low cry for help. Her heart began to race. She looked around. The forest floor was thick with fallen leaves, moss, and uneven ground. She took a careful step forward, then another. The sound grew clearer. Someone was there. Someone was trapped. Sarah dropped her backpack and knelt down. She brushed away leaves with her hands, and to her horror, she saw the edge of disturbed soil. A hand, pale and weak, fingers barely moving. Her breath caught. Someone was buried alive. Fear struck her chest, but instinct pushed her forward. She began digging, using her hands, clawing through the dirt as fast as she could. Soil filled her nails, her arms burned, but she did not stop. The faint voice whispered again, broken and desperate. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, she uncovered a face, a man's face, pale, breath shallow, eyes half closed. "Please," he whispered. His voice was hoarse. Sarah forced herself to stay calm. "I'm here. You'll be all right." She dug faster, pulling dirt away from his chest, his arms, his legs. When she freed enough of him, she grabbed his shoulders and pulled with all her strength. The man gasped for air as his body came free from the earth. He lay on the ground, trembling. His clothes were expensive but torn. His skin was scratched and bruised. His hair, once neatly kept, was messy and filled with dirt. Sarah pressed her hand to his chest to steady him. "You're safe now. Just breathe." The man blinked slowly, his lips trembling. For a moment, Sarah thought he might lose consciousness again. She pulled the blanket from her backpack and covered him. He tried to speak, but his words broke into silence. Sarah shook her head gently. "Don't force it. Rest. You're alive." The forest felt different now. The quiet no longer seemed peaceful. It felt heavy, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Sarah knew her life had just shifted into something unexpected. She had no idea who this man was, or why he had been left buried under the ground. But she knew one thing with certainty. She could not walk away, and so the story began. The man's breathing steadied, but it was shallow, as though every inhale took effort. Sarah sat close, her hands trembling. She tried to keep her voice calm. "What's your name?" she asked softly. His lips moved, and after a pause, a faint answer came. "Michael." Sarah nodded. "Michael, you're safe now. Do you understand? I found you." He blinked, but his eyes held confusion. His gaze searched her face, as though trying to make sense of her presence. Then his eyes fluttered shut, and Sarah shook him gently. "Stay with me." She pulled out her water bottle and lifted it carefully to his lips. He drank in weak sips, spilling some onto his chin, but she did not mind. Slowly, a little color returned to his face. Sarah's mind raced with questions. Who buried him? Why? And most importantly, was the danger still near? She looked around, the forest now silent except for the soft rustle of leaves. No footsteps, no voices, just the two of them, and the uneasy feeling that someone had meant for Michael never to be found. Michael tried to sit up, but his body gave way. Sarah steadied him. "Don't push yourself. You're not strong enough." His hand trembled as it touched hers. "Thank you," he whispered, barely audible. His voice cracked with emotion, and Sarah felt the weight behind those words. She studied him more closely now. His clothes, though dirty and torn, were of fine quality. His shoes, though scuffed, were expensive. He was not an ordinary man. Yet, here he was, helpless in the dirt. Sarah frowned. She had read stories in the news about kidnappings and ransoms, about people with money being targeted. Could he be one of them? Michael, she asked carefully. "Do you know what happened to you?" He shook his head weakly, his brows furrowed. "Darkness. Voices then. Nothing. His voice faded, and Sarah could see the strain in his effort to speak. She sighed. The mystery was thickening, but she had to focus on the immediate problem. He needed shelter. He needed safety, and she was the only one here to help. "I can't leave you here," she murmured, half to herself. Michael's eyes opened slightly, searching her face again. "Why? Why are you helping me?" The question cut through her. She thought of Daniel, of the nights she had stayed awake worrying about bills, of how she had carried her life alone for years. She thought of how the world often turned away from those in need. "Because I know what it feels like to be left behind," she said quietly. Michael's lips parted, as though he wanted to say more, but no sound came. His eyes filled with moisture, and Sarah quickly looked away, giving him the dignity of silence. She tightened the blanket around him. "You need rest. Then I'll get you out of here." But even as she said it, fear crawled through her. If someone had gone so far as to bury this man alive, they could still be nearby. She had to be careful. The sun had risen higher, its rays cutting deeper into the woods. The forest no longer looked calm. The shadows seemed sharper, the silence heavier. Sarah's heart beat fast, but she forced herself to stay steady. Michael's breathing slowed, his body giving in to exhaustion. Sarah sat beside him, alert, listening to every sound in the distance. She had stepped into something far larger than she understood, but there was no turning back. She glanced at the man lying on the ground. He was a stranger, yet his survival now rested entirely in her hands. She whispered to herself, a promise only the forest could hear. "I won't let anything happen to you." The forest stretched endlessly before them. Sarah wrapped one arm round Michael, guiding him step by step. His weight leaned heavily on her, but she did not complain. His legs trembled, his breath came in ragged pulls, yet he forced himself to keep moving. "Just a little further," Sarah said softly, though she had no clear destination in mind. She only knew they had to put distance between them and the place where he had been buried. Michael nodded faintly, his head lowering as though even holding it upright was too much. His once sharp features were dulled by exhaustion. Still, there was a quiet determination in his eyes, a refusal to surrender completely. They followed a narrow trail, one Sarah often used during her walks. She knew it led toward a clearing with a stream. Water might help him recover more. As they moved, Sarah's thoughts kept circling. Whoever had left him in the ground had wanted him dead. That meant there was danger, and it was real. Her chest tightened at the thought of Daniel. What if danger followed her home? What if helping this man put her son at risk? She shook the thought away. Michael stumbled, and she steadied him quickly. "Careful, lean on me." He gave her a small nod. His lips parted as though he wanted to speak, but his voice was so weak it was little more than a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." Sarah frowned. "What do you mean?" His words were broken, barely audible. "They'll come back." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She scanned the trees, but saw no movement. The forest seemed too quiet, as if holding secrets between its shadows. "Don't talk," she said firmly. "Save your strength." When they reached the stream, she eased him down onto a patch of moss. The water sparkled in the sunlight, its soft trickle the only sound in the silence. She cupped her hands, filled them with cold water, and brought it to his lips. He drank slowly, then let out a weak sigh, as though the water had pulled him back from the edge. "Thank you," he whispered again. His voice carried gratitude, but also sorrow, as if the words were not enough for what he felt. Sarah sat beside him. Her arms ached, her knees were scraped from the earlier digging, but she ignored the pain. "Rest here for a while," she told him. Michael's gaze lingered on her. His eyes were filled with questions, but exhaustion held him back. She noticed the way his hand trembled when he touched the grass, as though the ground itself reminded him of the horror he had just escaped. Sarah watched him closely, studying every small movement. His fragility stirred something deep in her, a protective strength she had long relied on as a mother. She thought again of Daniel, and how helpless he had looked as a baby in her arms. Michael shifted, his voice faint, but steady enough to form words. "You saved me." Sarah swallowed, unsure how to respond. Anyone would have, but even as she said it, she knew it was not true. Not everyone would have stopped. Not everyone would have dug through the earth with their bare hands. Michael's lips curved in the faintest shadow of a smile. Not everyone. Would his eyes closed again, his body giving in to fatigue? Sarah looked out at the trees, her senses alert. She did not know what would come next, but she felt the weight of a decision already made. She would protect him. The stream's soft sound filled the silence, carrying their fragile hope forward into the uncertain day. The sun dipped lower, and the forest shifted into evening shadows. Sarah gathered dry branches, her movements quick but careful. The fire crackled to life, its warm glow pushing back the darkness that crept in. Michael lay nearby, wrapped in the blanket. His eyes flickered open and shut, exhaustion pulling him toward sleep. Still, he tried to watch her, as if afraid she would disappear. "You're safe for now," Sarah told him gently, feeding another branch into the flames. Michael's voice was weak, but it carried a raw edge. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." Sarah sat back, the firelight dancing in her eyes. "Because you're human, and no one deserves what happened to you." He looked at her for a long time. Then his gaze lowered. "People have left me before. They saw me only for what I owned, never for who I was. When the danger came, they vanished." His voice broke, quiet but sharp with pain. Sarah's chest tightened. She understood abandonment. She had lived it. She thought of Daniel's father, who had walked away when responsibility became too heavy. She thought of nights spent alone, holding her child, waiting for help that never came. "You're not alone now," she said firmly. Michael's eyes glistened in the firelight. He turned his face away, hiding the emotion that threatened to surface. Sarah pulled her knees close, staring into the flames. She did not know who had tried to kill him, or why, but the fear in his words earlier echoed in her mind. They'll come back. She could not deny the risk. If those people found them, she would not stand a chance. Yet, walking away from him was unthinkable. "Tomorrow," she whispered, mostly to herself, "I'll get you to town. Someone there will know what to do." Michael stirred. "It's not safe. The closer we get to people, the easier it will be for them to find me." Sarah frowned. "Then what do you want me to do? Leave you here?" He shook his head slowly. "No, just be careful. I don't want you hurt because of me." The words surprised her. Even in his fragile state, he was worried about her. That small flicker of selflessness caught her off guard. For a while, they sat in silence. The fire popped softly, and the forest hummed with distant night sounds. An hour called from high above. Michael's breathing evened out, his body relaxing as sleep finally pulled him in. Sarah watched him, her thoughts heavy. She knew nothing about his world, his wealth, or his enemies. Yet she had seen the truth in his eyes, the same truth she carried in her own: pain, loneliness, the desperate need for someone to stay. And in that quiet moment, beneath the glow of the fire, Sarah realized she had already made her choice. Whatever secrets this man carried, whatever danger followed him, she would not turn away. Morning came gently, with pale light spilling between the trees. Sarah stirred the dying embers of the fire before helping Michael to his feet. He was steadier now, but his steps were slow, his weight still heavy against her shoulder. "Almost there," she whispered. "The road isn't far." Michael nodded, though his face showed unease. His eyes moved constantly, scanning the trees, as though expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. Sarah noticed. "You're afraid they'll follow." He hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "If they find me, it won't just be me in danger. It will be you too." Sarah tightened her grip on his arm. "I've faced danger before. Maybe not like this, but enough to know I won't back away now." His gaze softened, but the worry did not leave his face. The dirt path curved upward, and Sarah's breath grew heavier as she supported him. Every few steps, he faltered, but he refused to give up. She admired that. For someone who had nearly died, his will to push forward was strong. As they reached the clearing, the distant shape of rooftops appeared. The town lay beyond, quiet and still in the early morning light. Relief washed through Sarah. Help was close, but Michael stopped. His body stiffened, his face pale. "No," he whispered. Sarah turned to him. "What is it?" He shook his head slowly. His voice cracked as he spoke. "I can't go there. Not yet. You don't understand." Her brows knit. "Then help me understand." Michael's chest rose and fell with deep, uneven breaths. He closed his eyes, as though gathering strength. Finally, his words came raw and heavy. "They buried me because I was going to expose them. People I trusted. People in my own company. They wanted me gone so they could take everything. Money, power, control. If I step into town without proof, they'll finish what they started." Sarah's heart pounded. His words carried the weight of truth. She could see the fear etched in his face, the tremor in his voice. This was more than wealth. This was betrayal. "Then what do you need?" she asked quietly. Michael looked at her, his eyes filled with pain, time, safety, and someone I can trust. Sarah held his gaze. For a moment, silence wrapped around them. Then she spoke with quiet certainty. "You have me." His eyes glistened. He turned his face away, hiding the tears that threatened to fall. But Sarah saw them. She felt the unspoken gratitude in the way his hand gripped her arm tighter. Together, they moved off the path, deeper into the cover of trees. Sarah knew they could not hide forever, but for now, trust had been built between them, fragile but real, and that trust would guide them through what came next. The journey back had been long, but Sarah managed to bring Michael into a small home by nightfall. The house was modest, peeling paint on the walls, old furniture worn by years of use, but it was warm, and it was safe. Michael sat at the kitchen table, still wrapped in the blanket. Sarah placed a cup of warm tea in front of him. Daniel slept soundly on the couch, his small frame curled beneath a thin quilt. For a moment, silence filled the room. The faint ticking of the clock was the only sound. Michael's eyes traveled across the space, taking in the worn details of Sarah's life. His expression was soft, touched with something she could not quite name. "You risked everything for me," he said finally, his voice low but steady. Sarah sat across from him, her hands wrapped around her own cup. "You needed help. That's enough reason." Michael's gaze lingered on her. Then, with trembling hands, he reached into the pocket of his torn jacket. He pulled out a small, dirt-stained object, a folded piece of paper. He opened it slowly, revealing words and signatures smudged but still visible. "This," he whispered, "is proof. Proof of what they did, of what they planned. They buried me because I wouldn't stay silent." Sarah leaned closer, her eyes scanning the page. She didn't fully understand the details, but she understood its weight. This paper could save him, or destroy him. Michael's voice broke. "When I was under the earth, I thought it was the end. I thought I would die forgotten. But then I heard you, your voice, your hands pulling me back. I've never prayed before, but I prayed then, and you were the answer." Sarah's chest tightened. She lowered her gaze, tears forming despite her effort to stay strong. Michael's own eyes glistened. His voice dropped to a whisper that carried through the quiet house. "You didn't just save my life. You gave me a reason to keep living." The words broke something inside her. Tears spilled down her cheeks, silent and steady. For years she had carried her burdens alone, unseen, unheard. Now, this man, broken and fragile yet sincere, spoke to her as though she mattered more than she ever believed. Michael reached across the table, his hand covering hers. His touch was warm despite his weakness. Their eyes met, and in that moment, they both cried, not from fear, not from pain, but from the sudden weight of connection. Sarah whispered through her tears, "You're not alone anymore." "And neither am I." The lamp cast a soft glow over them. Daniel stirred on the couch, unaware of the bond forming at the kitchen table. The night held them in its quiet embrace, two lives stitched together by fate, by suffering, and by the fragile hope that tomorrow could be different. For the first time in years, Sarah felt her heart open, no longer burdened by loneliness. And for Michael, who had faced death and betrayal, the tears carried something he had not known in a long time: trust. The forest had nearly taken his life, but it had also given him something new, a second chance, a person to hold on to. And in the quiet of that small home, the promise of tomorrow began to grow.